So some of this is kind of tongue twisting, so I'll have to read it. But basically, Washington state law requires us to appraise all real and personal property unless it's exempted by law. So if you have, for example, a church, you want that exempted, you have to go to the State Department of Revenue, and they issue you a number, and then they send the information to us that your property is exempted, and then we take it off the tax rolls at that point in time. And by state law, we are required to revalue all properties each year. And we're also required to inspect all property at least once every 6 years. So Mason County has over 55,000 parcels that we have to bring to market value every year. So we've divided the county into 6 inspection areas. And we brought our map, and if you want, you can come up here and look later. But our GIS department did that really nice map. And there's around 9,000 parcels in each area. So we have to look at each of those. One of these every year, we have to inspect every parcel that's within that. So we also processed and inspected over 1,600 new building permits this year. And we added $40 million worth of new construction to the county. We have 5 appraisers to complete about 2,000 inspections each. So it takes us a while to get that done. And we usually look at 6 to 7 months to have those appraisals completed. But we have to bring the balance of the parcels to current market value for assessment purposes. So we use the appraisal method called mass appraisal, and I will read you the description. It's defined as a systematic appraisal of groups of property as of a given date, standardized procedures, and statistical testing. It involves analyzing data collected in mass quantities, developing statistics from the data, and applying the results to large numbers of properties. Groups of sales are used to provide indications of each neighborhood or similar properties. Mass appraisal applies the same appraisal principles as individual appraisals. Like if you're trying to buy a house or redo your mortgage on your house, the bank is going to send out an appraiser to appraise the value of that house. So it's the same principles, we're just doing it in large groups. And our whole process takes almost a year to complete because gaining the values of the properties is our first step, and then we go forward and start setting the levies, and everyone draws from those numbers that we gain after our appraisals complete. And this year we posted all our sales on the website, so that is, a lot of people have been very appreciative of that. As well as there's information on the levy process, how to appeal your property value, and you can download your applications for your senior exemptions. So with that little formality complete, if nobody has any questions, I can go further, but I'm sure there'll be some questions asked.
What does the county consider senior payable for?
You need to be 64 to apply for the program. Or no, 61. I haven't done the program for a while, so I get on the website. But yeah, your income needs to be under 40,000, and then there's 3 levels of exemption that you can receive depending on where your income arrives.
And that income is not the same as the federal income tax?
No, it is not. They use the income tax as a guide, but there's things you have to claim, like you have to claim all your Social Security, and there's different guidelines that the state has set for deciding whether you can be accepted into the program or not. But once you are accepted, the good things about it are it takes your value, the value of your home at that time, and it freezes it, and it will stay that way as long as you are able to remain on the program, so that you pretty much have you can have an expectation of what your taxes are going to be, so you wouldn't be worried about large jumps. And then you're also going to be taxed at a lesser value, not value, but a lesser levy rate than the other taxes are going to be. So it is beneficial, and if you think you qualify at all, be sure and call our office and talk to the gals, and they'll set you up or send you the information. Yes?
Kind of off the wall question. When it comes to, you know, as you know, I'm on the court, and we're wondering what each district value was there as far as property values go. And with the mass appraisal system, is that why it's so difficult for us to get that information, what each district appraises at?
Well, probably you're waiting for your values so you can start your budget process. And the reason you're waiting is because we haven't completed all our appraisals and then done all the analysis yet. So that is that we're trying very hard to get to where the state thinks we should be at each process. So we're trying very hard to get in sync so that you will have those values when the budgeting process starts. So that's one of the things we've been really trying hard to get to, but it seems like just something comes up every year. It's either a software problem or a problem unexpected that pops up and we can't release any figures till we get this figured out. So it's as frustrating for us as I'm sure it is for the districts trying to get their values.
Great, thank you.
I'm looking at this, and one of the last times that you were here and spoke, you talked about Mason County switching over to annual valuations. And this says all counties now perform annual valuations. So was Mason County one of the last ones to get on this?
No, we were probably about in the middle. We had to be on, I think it was 2012, the state mandated all the counties to be on the annual revaluation. And I know when I first came into office, I started the process and we were accepted to go on to the annual revaluation, and I believe it was 2012.
And that's working out now well?
It is. I think it was a big turnaround for my staff. They had to stop thinking in the old way where we set a value and it stayed that exact value for 4 years. And I have to keep telling them every year it is the revaluation for the whole county. So, but we're getting that way. We had a lot of new processes to learn. We had a new software to deal with, but I think we've just made really excellent progress, and we're starting to see the fruits of that. And I think the consistency of our appraisals has gotten much better than it was. The new software system seems to bubble up to the top problem areas that we've done extra research on. So it's been a struggle, but things are just getting so much better.
Can I ask one more? I'm sorry, Mark. Since you're seeing the annual valuations of property, then would you see if there's a trend of an improvement in the economy? Would you be able to see that?
We do, because we look at all the sales we look at all the sales, not just the ones that we can use to contribute to establishing value, but we look at all the sales, and you can see where the trends are. You can see if the sales are higher in one part of the county than they are in another, so you know where to direct any increase or decrease in your values. Exactly.
So you're going to share some of that, I hope.
Gosh, I didn't bring those statistics.
Public information.
Yeah, but there is an upward trend right now. We are seeing that.
Did you have to hire any additional help? And if so, how many to do this?
No, we haven't.
So they have other job duties as assigned? Do they stay at the same salary?
Well, our office is very interesting because it has 2 separate unions in it. So the appraisers are under one union, and my office staff, my clerical help, is under another union. So I certainly have to abide by the contracts that we signed with both unions. This affected our whole office, and it affected it in some good ways and some not so good ways. But what I did is I took any clerical duties that the appraisal staff had, and I moved it to the clerical side of the office to allow them, more time to just focus on appraising. But with the county was divided into quarters, so we had to do a quarter of the county every year. But now I've divided it into the 6 areas here, and so there's really fewer properties to physically inspect. So when the appraisers do go out, and I did not replace one appraiser that retired, but we still have, the staff to do the physical inspections. What we're needing right now is someone that can help with the statistical analysis at a higher level, so we're looking to do
Doing
that.
the job they were doing without the field every year. You know what I mean?
Well, they've been going out every
If you
year.
didn't, okay.
That was their job, to
Okay.
go out into the field, but they're doing less. They don't do data entry. There's a lot of other programs in our office that, like the current use program was done by an appraiser. Now it's basically administrated by, a clerical position. So those are the sort of things that I shifted, and we've made that work because of the new software system, there's some things that are not as time intensive as they were before. So it kind of balanced out, really. Yes, sir.
When you send out the new appraisal values, would it be possible to either put on the form or put on the website? What is the average in each region that it's going up, so that you can gauge yourself as to why did my thing jump X amount of dollars?
Or drawing.
It gives you an idea, they all jumped, or you were, for some reason, out of line.
So what I hear you saying is that we know, like the Greenfield area, I think the values there did pretty well. They rose quite a bit, and you would like to have me indicate somehow that your area stayed static, or your area.
Well, the percentage, did it go up, did it go down, by how many percent? So you get some kind of gauge level for looking at how much your taxes did compared to what
Compared to
everybody else.
everyone else. Do you have an answer to that, Ole?
When we're going through and doing our physical revaluation of an area, essentially what we're doing is throwing away the previous year's assessment. So we can certainly gauge what the overall market's doing, but when we're throwing out all that old data, we're appraising the land and the buildings in a standardized manner. There may have been some inequities before, because you'll hear, well, mine went up, his went down. Well, now they're being valued exactly the same. They're similar properties, they're similar land. So percent of increase isn't always a true gauge when we're doing our physical inspection. When we do our statistical, it is a true gauge of what the overall market's going up. 6.5% is what we saw the market increase overall in Mason County. Certain neighborhoods may have been 0%, and other neighborhoods may have been as high as 12%, and they were, and we have that information. But again, for the physical area, we're making sure we're correcting equity. We're making sure everybody's being valued the same. So we can get that data. I do have that information. But again, on the physical side, when you're looking strictly at the percent of increase, you're kind of presupposing that the previous assessment was correct. That's not always the case, and Ms. Peterson recognized that and hired me to make sure that we're treating everybody equal. We've really done a lot better job of doing that. The DOR's own analysis of the various counties, Mason County has the second highest assessment ratio in the state. So we're looking good statistically. We're verified by DOR that we're doing good. But to answer your question, can I tell you how much the market has increased in your particular neighborhood? Yes, sir, I can.
Well, could that be posted on the website?
That could be something we could talk about at probably the website, because our actual notices, it's very.
Right, I mean, the website, you can change it as the values change, but I think that would be a helpful tool
Okay.
to people living here.
Okay,
I agree.
we'll keep that in mind. Take that back to the office.
I heard on a talk radio show that currently it's $40,000 a year senior citizen rates apply, that there was talk of raising that.
They just raised it about 2 years ago. And that is something that often comes into the legislative session, but it doesn't always become become a law.
Okay.
So it is.
But there is talk.
I haven't heard any this year, and usually, there's an assessor websites where we all talk to each other and that. They talked about how they look at income, because your income here in Mason County is certainly different on how much buying power you have than if you were in King County. So we're looking at the inequities between the smaller counties, the mid-counties, and the large counties, and that maybe we could make the senior exemption make sense in any county that you live in. So that's a talk that I've heard, but, we go over to Olympia in January and discuss those issues that are brought up.
Well, I looked into the senior exemption after I first retired, and the thing that really is the kicker to it is, like if you have CDs, say you cash in a $10,000 CD, that's $10,000 additional income that they count the entire amount, your savings, not just your earnings, but your savings, so you pretty much throw out the senior exemption if you save anything in life.
That's right.
Well, the thing is with that, I'm not up, because I used to do the senior exemptions, but then I haven't been in there. So gals that do the program are much more up to date on what's happening. But that may put you off the exemption for 1 year, but you can go back and you can still keep your frozen value. We don't move it to market. It'll stay there. So you have kind of a year that you can just let that lie and then come back to exactly where you were in the program.
You kind of answered it, but I wanted to verify it. With the appraisal every 4 years as opposed to every year now, did it actually cost more to do those appraisals? Or have you kind of rearranged everything where it's cost effective?
There was no additional cost except for software, and there was grant money out there available when we purchased that initially, and they certainly had a lot of training out there, but as far as impact to the personnel, it was fine. It was just hard to wrap your mind around doing something a different way. And as they say, change is hard.
Great, thank you.
Come on, there's got to be more questions. If not, if you think of something later, you can certainly call it down and talk
I
to
can't
me.
let her off the hook that quick.
Come on, I'm like out the door.
I have more to tell us.
No, we all see them out.
Now this is basically, I had one of my appraisers that had been around for a long time help me draw this up, and he knew the areas really well, and we had to really look at where we put our dividing lines, and we had to look at population and how accessible it was and how much of a community or neighborhood it was. So this was quite a big ordeal to draw these up, and that was one of the things that we had to present to the state before we went on to annual evaluation. So even though this area looks way bigger, the population is about the same because it contains parks and everything there where we don't count the squirrels and the bears. So.
Which area is the most expensive?
Well, anything with waterfront, and we have a lot of waterfront here, so it's like so many other counties that are on this side of the mountains, everything around the water tends to be more expensive. You get to the interior, sometimes even just a half mile away, you'll see values drop because the waterfront is limited and people want it and they're willing to pay for it. And we certainly see summer homes that have more value than my home and a lot of other people's homes, but
Isn't there one area though?
Isn't it, yeah.
When you look at area 4 and
As far
5
as-
and 3,
which it depends because the waterfront is different. And it depends on
Well,
what
let's
people
take,
want.
there's no waterfront in area 1.
Oh, yeah, there is.
It's
Well,
like
there's a little
Cushman.
bit, down.
Yeah.
So,
I can't tell you what is the
There you
most
go.
value. That's an interesting question, which area is most valuable.
yeah.
And it could change every year too, we never
You know
know.
why I'm asking.
It's basically which one brings in the most taxes for the county. And the way I understand the area buying
You
probably.
need the most value to create the taxes. And it depends, like the city of Shelton, they're putting in the Sierra Pacific Mill, that's gonna be worth a lot of money, so that's gonna add value to that area, just, through industry, so it's different than just residential.
little about that committee that if a person wants to argue about their property tax, the what, yeah, whatever that,
Equalization.
yeah, can you talk about that committee and how it came about and if they actually see it as a property owner's way?
No.
What their job is to be impartial. And the county commissioners, they're volunteers. The county commissioner approves them, brings them in, and they're separate from our office. We have no influence over them. And what they do is, if you decide that you don't like the value that we put on your property, then you would give your appeal to the Board of Equalization, and they would accept it, and then they would notify us that you filed an appeal, and then we prepare basically our rebuttal of, I won't say it's a rebuttal, but
Reasoning. or-
Justification.
justification of value. Thank you very much. I knew you guys would help me through this. And then we both go down, we sit down and the appellant sits down and we both present our cases, and then the Board of Equalization will go ahead and make their decision on, what they felt was the correct value. And sometimes the appellant comes out still feeling that they didn't like the value that was given them, whether it was a sustained value or whether they might have lowered it or even rose it up. It's whatever they're seeing with what they were given. And at that point, you can go to the State Board of Equalization, and basically it's the same process. You go before a board and you present your case and another decision is made. And then you can even go further on into the courts if you want to spend that amount of time.
Well, if you think your assessment's out of whack, you can go directly to your office. too,
Yes.
And go question what happened.
Exactly, that is,
That's the easiest way.
a lot of times it is,
They don't
because
change it.
we have a lot of parcels and we do a lot of data entry. And a lot of, I won't say a lot of times, but a high percentage of time, we find it's just something that we weren't knowledgeable of, because especially if you're in an area that wasn't having a physical inspection that year. So if you can bring up something that, we did put the back porch on there, but it's not as big as you're saying, or we tore this house down that was there, or a shed, or, so there's many things that we may not be aware of that if you bring to our attention, sometimes the square foot is incorrect, and that can make certainly a difference in the value. So those sort of things we can fix. And view properties, that's really a difficult determination sometimes, because you know how fast our trees grow here. So you have a view, 2 years down the line, you don't have a view. So those are the sort of things that we may not be as updated on as we'd like to. So if those things are brought to our attention, then yes, we can do something about it. We can fix it. We change the value, and we're done. So that is always the first step that we recommend.
How many areas do you do every year? Is it just one area per
Just
year?
one area, because by law, we only have to physically inspect 1/6 of the county, or we have to be at your particular parcel once every 6 years.
Oh. Which area are you on this year?
We are just, we're going into Area 6, which is Karstein Island and some of the adjoining properties. So we've got everything set up. We'll probably be sending the appraisers in there in a couple of weeks to start there.
When I went before the Board of Equalization in Shelby, I was sitting out in the office outside where we went in.
Okay.
And I heard them discussing my case before I ever walked in that door. And they were already deciding how they were gonna vote. And when I went in, when they called me in, and as soon as the mic was on, I made that statement. And they did deny me. But I was really annoyed at that point, but I didn't know there was other places I could have gone. Because mine was almost doubled.
Yeah,
It's
that's,
It's also my understanding that the people who are the three people that are judging or deciding, there's no real qualification. You don't need to have any degrees, you don't need to have,
yeah.
it can be a housewife or a carpenter or no.
I know we've
no-
had, yeah.
I mean, they have no education at all. of value, maybe not even know the house or the property land or anything, and they're denying it.
Well,
Or
my neighbor
approving.
is an alternate, and he wasn't there at the time. But he had his own CPA office in Seattle. And I thought, well, that would be a good qualification for the job. But it was years before that, before he was on as an alternate.
I'm sure it's pretty difficult just to find somebody willing to volunteer and serve on that.
It is, I know we've had people with Realtor background, they've had, one of the assessors was on the board for a while. And they do go to school, the state does provide training for them and they have to go to that. So they don't come in and they make sure the training's done before, they start working and making the decision. So they may come in with no qualifications, but they do give them training, so they should have some sense of.
Well, I'm not saying it happens all the time, but that was my
Yeah, for
experience.
your personal experience,
And
well,
I
that's good.
waited until I knew that Mike was on before I said a word. And then I said, I was sitting out in the office, waiting for you to call me, and you were discussing my case. Because they used the name. So I knew who they were talking about, and I thought, wait a minute, I haven't even got in there, you're already deciding. So.
Well, and
But I
that,
didn't win.
but you voiced your
Just do-
concern,
yeah,
and you
I
can
know.
always call the commissioners and
Right.
talk to them, or Department of Revenue. Yeah, the Department of Revenue does audit that board, so there are different avenues that you could go down to voice your opinions.
Come on. Now, I want to make sure I understand this. You said there are 6 areas in Mason County that you've divided the area into 6 areas. And by law, you only have to physically inspect one of those 6 areas each year. So our property wouldn't be physically inspected except once every 6 years. So then, but we get an annual valuation. So how do you determine what that annual valuation is if you haven't come and physically inspected?
That's where we do our mass appraisal techniques, where you do an analysis on the rest of the rest of the county, and you're looking at sales, and you're looking at trends.
Wow.
And so it's kind of busy at that end as far as trying to, put all those sales together and do your analysis and make sure that, it's following what the physical inspection area is doing. I mean, usually if the sales are up in the area that you physically inspect, it's trending all over the county, but maybe not in all of the areas. There's just a lot that goes into that in point of trying to make everything equitable. And
So it's a software program then, obviously. And so is somebody inputting information into this software program? Like realtors are inputting into it, or?
no, we gather our own information. Every sale goes through the auditor's office. It's recorded down there. We pick up those sales every day, and we
Right.
go through quite a process. We look at the sales, we look at the grantor, the grantee, we read out the legals to make sure that the correct parcel is being transferred, and we put that into our own spreadsheets, or it does go into the software also. It's pretty good software in that it does have places we can put that. Then when you want to do your analysis, you can do queries and pull all that information out and put it into your spreadsheet and start your analysis from that. So
We don't have access to that, right?
you can look at the sales. That's through the auditor's office. You can look at any of the sales that come through, definitely.
I did.
Okay. And that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
When you do the appraisals, I've heard that if your driveway is blacktop, it's one price, if it's cement, it's another. Is that true? The cement is more?
I'm a cheap appraiser.
There is actually a difference in cost. The big question is there actually a difference in the market? 10 years later, is anybody gonna pay more for those two different types of driveways? Probably not.
But do you take that into
Initially, we
consideration?
take it into consideration, yes.
And you
There's a
charge-
slight, there's a
You
slight
charge us
variation.
more for the cement than the blacktop?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, they have to look at the cost, what's
Yeah.
the cost of cement, what's the cost of blacktop? And that, and, what's your square footage there? How much of it is there? And that.
If you move like it. I know of
I don't know
I know of
that.
the cement driveway that now has blacktop on
Put it in
top.
concrete, paint it black.
We're gonna have to keep our eyes sharp up here in this area, I can tell that.
A question on what you paid for a place, and years down the road, and you approved it, but with all the records and all the permits, but the county doesn't show an improvement as like, for instance, a home was put on, a new home was put
Okay.
on a place. It doesn't show, so when you go to sell that, it only shows your initial cost, so it looks like you're actually asking way more money than you paid, when in actuality, it isn't that much because you put out a new home.
Okay, yeah, and that's taken into consideration when we pick up the new construction. And that we run a ratio and we have a code for something that's out of ratio. And so we go back and we look at those and that we find that, okay, a lot of times people, well, I won't say a lot of times, sometimes people buy the land, sometimes they buy it with the house price already included because they got a builder that's going to build it, he sold it to them as a whole. Or we can see that, they paid $20,000 for this lot and now suddenly, they're selling it for $250,000, and it's got to be a reason. So those are the sort of things that we research because we want our ratios to come out good.
But it doesn't show, so when it's on the tax
What do you mean it
rate,
doesn't show?
when you look on the tax roll, or the tax, like a Zillow, for instance,
Okay,
it'll say you paid $10,000 for placing a house on it, an
Uh-huh.
old house.
okay,
Storm comes, destroys the house, you have to put on a new house.
okay.
It doesn't show the new house, so the value looks like you paid $10,000 for a place that you want $150,000. Just say,
But you had
how
a
come it
building,
doesn't show, excuse me?
you had a building permit in between. so
Yeah,
the
that's what
county
I'm
looks-
saying.
But the county looks at the value of.
Right, that's what I'm
We have to-
asking. My question was, how come it's not showing anywhere for the public to see that online?
Okay, it
Other than with
probably,
the initial
it's
fee.
probably a time issue because we only pick up new construction in the summer and we have to.
1997.
Oh, okay. I don't know why, except they should have. Because once you get that building permit, we have to act on it and we have to go out and look at it. And then we would, write it up as new construction because those new construction dollars are important
Yeah,
to the
but-
district.
Doesn't
I think she's referring to Zillow. Zillow doesn't have any ground rules.
Oh,
They do-
I don't know.
Zillow says something, but
Yeah.
they use that as a tool for people to buy.
Right.
But when I look at the county, that's what it says. That it might be lower than what you're asking, really low.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a particular problem, I'd certainly be willing to look at it. But, we gather all.
You're still charging what it is. what it
Right,
costs.
so that's
The
unfair to
taxes-
it's unfair to the people around you. If we have a lower value on the house.
No, it's not a little, no, that isn't, you're charging the right amount of taxes.
Oh, okay, it's just
For what
not
it's
showing on
worth.
Zillow.
No, it's not showing on the tax roll. The new house is not showing.
Okay. What was
New
that?
house, 1997.
Yeah, that's confusing me, I'd have
It
You
it
can-
has to show.
Okay.
You have to
If
go
they're
down.
collecting the taxes on the value, it's gotta be shown.
to, yeah.
When you look at the tax pay, when you look in there, it'll tell you what they initially paid for a place.
That's an issue.
Tell you the year and tell you who bought it
Yeah.
and how much they paid for it. But when you're looking to find a new home that went on there, it doesn't show.
Right. Why would it?
Because it's something that was a whole new,
That's tracking sales, not land value.
it
If
went
you
on,
look at
was
the
a,
assessment will show you improvements and stuff right on it.
right.
And that's done on an annual basis.
So the public wouldn't know that by looking online.
You
I'll
can
show
see
you.
it online.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
No, it can't.
You
The tax assessor.
I'll tell you, when they call a storage shed a cabin, that's why I won my equalization thing on several things. There's just some problems, and that's why I'm trying to find out if this is,
Okay.
but I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, you come and talk to me anytime, we can, it's a lot better if I have the the case in front of me and I can pull out the history and look through it and we can try and decipher what went on. Definitely, I'm open to that.
Everything's all open.
I just wanted to comment that I had an issue with our taxes a couple of years ago after I tore a house down and it still showed on the tax rolls, but I called Melody and talked to her and got it all resolved and got the money back. It just takes a while for things to catch up.
I have one that says in the house sitting on it, they tore a house off, but we bought the bare land.
Yeah, anytime you come across something like that, I'd like to look
Yeah,
at it.
yeah.
Oh, there's a whole bunch.
Should have already been at your office because we had the demolition permits. It just hadn't gotten to your office for some reason.
It
Yeah.
was just a time issue, but
Yeah,
it
it
got
is.
resolved and that's the important
Yeah,
part.
I had
Yeah,
to
and
make
it-
organization was all mine.
and that's fine. The system worked.
Well, yeah, I know, but it shouldn't have to go that far. It's
No.
simple.
No, that's why if you come in and
Very
talk to us,
simple.
we'll try to figure it out.
Switching gears, I don't know if you can answer it or not, it's about the website. Years ago, you used to be able to find out how much something sold for pretty easily. Can you explain how I can find that on the website now? Do I go to the auditors or how do I find it?
To look for sales, go into the auditor's site because they're going to record all of those. They have the images right there so you can look at them and read through them. You need to look it up by what we call the auditor file number. And if you need that information, our office can give you that information so you can go to their site and look. We can always, if it's a specific thing that you're looking for, we can pull it up and read it to you. The gals at the front counter are very accommodating in looking things up for people, because I know that the auditor's website, it takes quite a few steps to get in there. And so I've talked to quite a few people through it, but sometimes it's just easier to look it up and print it out for somebody.
Okay, good to know.
So
Thank
we
you.
would be willing to help you with that.
The auditor file number, what is that?
The auditor file number is what is put on that document when it's recorded, and that's how we track it. Every document that's recorded has its own auditor file number, and that is an identifying factor that we use all the time when we're looking at chain of title, trying to figure out. I just had a question come across the website today where they were wanting to know some details about it. An easement that went through their property, and I pulled up their document that they purchased it on, and I read through, there's like 3 references to an easement, so now I'm going to give him that information because he's thinking nobody can use the easement, but it looks like they can. So we get that sort of thing. Yeah, we get that sort of thing all the time, and so we're familiar with looking up the documents and reading out the legals and deciphering what's going on a particular property for people.
If you don't know the auditor's file number, do you do it through the tax parcel number or the address or both?
You can, at the auditor's site, once you get to their search page, if you put in the parcel number, it'll bring up every recorded document against that parcel number, so you can just sort through all of them.
Sometimes
and you'll
by
have
their
it.
name and then the other, any of those.
She's the one I'm not asking.
Yeah,
Yeah, but she didn't say that.
yeah. So, yeah, there's many different ways you can search on their site.
Okay. Well, I've tried the name and it doesn't work.
No.
Well, you go into their office though, and
Oh, yeah.
someone will always help you.
I know,
Yeah.
but that's 45 minutes or 40 minutes for me, so it's a lot easier
Oh,
on mine.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
Just call me. I'll take care of
Okay.
it. Okay, any more questions? Okay, thank you for inviting me. I was